Netflix has just been scammed out of tens of millions of dollars, and it's all their own fault, really. But it is crazy the story that happened with that money and where it all went. But these guys basically were funding a show from a director, and he was able to do crazy things with the money. And it's just going to be a huge fight to try and get any sort of money back for Netflix, too. And it's just a crazy thing. We can see that he started here saying, this was just a portion of it. A second portion that Netflix gave, they gave him 11 million dollars to this movie director, and that director instead lost the money trading options in the stock market. So he is obviously trying to be like a Wall Street bet degenerate, trying to turn that 11 million into 100 million, into $1 billion, and taking it all the way and being rich and never have to worry again. The biggest problem is he's not even doing it with his own money. He's doing it with money that is supposed to be for creating a show for Netflix, but instead he's trying to get rich off of it. So, it gets even worse than a Wall Street better, YOLOing everything into a certain stock or option, because he's not even using his own money. At least those guys, they're using their own money. When they lose everything, it is their own money, right? They made bad decisions. This case, it's not even his. But that $11 million is just the tip of the iceberg for what happened with this guy and the money. And he has a crazy story, just like you would assume everything with any trader. There's a ton of craziness of losses and gains and crazy purchases, and he did it all. He lived up to the Wall Street bet traders story. This is the New York Times article saying, $55 million saga for Netflix series you'll never see. So a lot of money to burn right on a show that's never going to come out. But this goes through the whole story of this guy and what he did with the money. So this is the first step here, saying he gambled a large chunk of money from Netflix on the stock market and cryptocurrencies, spent millions of dollars on fleets of Rolls-Royce, furniture, and designer clothing. That's the overall type of thing that happened. If we scroll down more, just to kind of talk about the money, because that's what we're interested in here, right? So the total $55 million is what the total for the show is. Let's assume, right, that this 11 million is what he's gambled with. I think that's all they can really prove and say that he did. And the 55 million, the rest of it, so $44 million, probably went towards the show, editing and producing and doing all this kinds of stuff. That we'll assume that the vast majority went towards the show, but the final part that was supposed to wrap the whole thing up and get it put together and sent out went to his pocket and his gambling addiction. Because when he got that $11 million, this is what he did with it. It says Mr. Rinsch, definitely saying that wrong, transferred 10.5 million of the 11 million to his personal brokerage account at Charles Schwab and used options, placed risky bets on the stock market. One of his wagers was that shares of biotech firm Gilead Sciences, which had announced that it was testing an antiviral drug for COVID, would soar. And that was wrong. He got that one wrong. Another bet that he made, guessing right after this, was that the S&P, which had already fallen more than 30%, would fall further, and he lost on that as well. So he lost $5.9 million in a matter of weeks. So of the 10.5 million, he's already out over half of the money just in a couple of weeks, placing bets on options and trying to make it big and make it rich. Just out the money, and that's supposed to be for finishing the show. The reason he got this money too, this $11 million, is because he went to Netflix. This was during 2020. He went to Netflix and said, we need more money to finish the show. We need $11 million, a cash injection to finish the show. And Netflix originally went back to him and said, well, we don't really see it that way. We don't think you need the money. We don't want to give you the money. So we'll see what we can do with what we have now. And then he said, well, the whole show risks collapsing and never coming out if you don't do this. So Netflix caved, gave him the money, and then he took the money and spent it on options. But it doesn't end there. We can go even lower, right? Because with every bad story has a good section of it where he actually was able to make some money, which is crazy. You wouldn't expect that. But you can see this saying he had begun using what remained of the 11 million after he lost the money on the options to bet on crypto. And unlike his stock market investments, this one paid off when he liquidated his Dogecoin position in May 2021, he had a balance of nearly $27 million. So he got a win. He was able to turn the money back, and he was able to get the 11 million back, I guess. And maybe if he was smarter, he would, one, probably not tell people, because I think somebody else knew, what he was really doing. And he should have just given the 11 million back and could have made the arbitrage, right? You got lucky, you got bailed out, and you made more money. You could have made the difference. If you got found out, they probably would have came for that money, and it's still not a right thing to do. Should not have done it. But after he won all that money, $27 million, he was seeing dollar signs. He wanted to spend some of that cash. And then he went to a spending spree. He bought 5 Rolls Royces, a Ferrari, a $387,000 background constant watch, and millions of dollars worth of high-end furniture, designer clothing. Ultimately, the tab came to $8.7 million that he spent, which, also doing the math, I guess is still like less. Like, he could have used 11 million to finish the show and tried to hide this whole thing, but for some reason it all came out. I think that it was his wife. I think it says, right here, he was in a divorce with his wife, and it went bad or something, and then his legal team, or her legal team, suspected that the purchases were designed to hide his crypto winnings. So, someone found out, and someone dug into this and actually found, like, okay, well, we were supposed to be using this money for this stuff, and this is where the whole thing kicks off. And what was his excuse, right? Because everyone needs to have an excuse on why you spent $11 million on yourself and then went out and bought 6 luxury cars. You can only drive one at a time. What are you doing buying 6, right? But he said that in a deposition that the cars and furniture were props for Conquest, and that he had paid for them with Netflix's production money. So at least half of that's right. He paid for it with Netflix's production money, right? But they were definitely probably not props for his show. Probably personal use, as why would you need all these designer clothes and high-end furniture and all these luxury cars? Like, $8.7 million on luxuries is not really for the show. Doesn't seem like it's for the show, right? So that's his excuse, that they're just props. We're just props for the show. Don't worry about it. But at least he's not fully lying. He didn't use Netflix's money to get the props. But this ends with he's basically in a case with Netflix now. Netflix obviously disagrees, and he disagrees with Netflix, which is so crazy. If you hear this side, right? He says on this, you have filings reviewed by the Times. He argued that money was contractually at his, and that Netflix owed him several more payments totaling more than $14 million. And obviously, Netflix disagrees. But that's crazy, to use Netflix's money to gamble in the stock market and lose it, and then gamble in crypto and win and make a bunch of money, and then buy all of your luxury goods, and then say, well, hold on a second. Netflix owes me $14 million. What are you talking about? That is crazy. I mean, I guess he's got a lot of confidence to make that his stance and saying Netflix actually owes me more money. Okay, so that 11 million that was for production that I spent on everything I wanted to, they actually owe me more than that. They got to give me 14 million. I don't know what they're doing. They got to get on that. Give me my check. But that's the story of Netflix getting scammed out of tens of millions of dollars. A total of 55 million. Even if just the 11 million was used for stock market gambling and crypto gambling and luxury goods, the other 44 million is put into a show that's now never going to come out, and it's basically burned, and it's content that will never see the light of day. So Netflix out $55 million, and not too bad for Netflix, right? I think they can afford to lose that. They're not going to be losing sleep at night, but still, just a crazy story. That's going to do it for this video. As always, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video.